So the thing that I just wanted to show you all really quickly. So I went, this is the crypto data download site that I put, and I went to Bitfinex, right? It's just because I thought this one was really useful. And then here's the Bitcoin USD daily, right? And there's some other ones here. Again, this isn't the final site for all data that you might possibly need. But if I click on daily, then I get this comma delimited file. Before I was able to download it directly, but I didn't have any trouble. All I did is I just highlighted it all and copied it, and then I pasted it into Excel. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to share my Excel spreadsheet for the Bitcoin data, right? And you'll notice, when it comes in, it's going to come in, and I'm sure, again, a lot of you have done this, but just in case you haven't, I just wanted to let you know that I went under data, and then you use text to columns. And I don't know if I can go back. Let me see if it'll undo my text to columns so I can show you again. Okay, there's one example. So I highlighted everything in this row, and then I chose text to columns, and you can see that everything is separated by commas because it's a comma delimited file. So you hit delimited, you go next, and I clicked comma, and then it'll break everything nicely. You could hit next, but I just hit finish then, and you can see how it spread it all across the columns. So now I'm gonna go, well, I guess I can't go, let me see if I can go back to what I had. Oh, no, okay. And that's what I did before, so yeah. So the other thing that I did is I added a little column here because I asked you guys to look at the changes. So I took to the difference in the changes in the closing prices. So I'm just taking the latest closing price and I'm subtracting it from the one before. And then I get the daily change in closing prices for Bitcoin. And again, you can see that the date column, this is for June 17th, right? And the one is before that is June 16th. This is the Unix time code. You could just delete that. You know, you don't need the Unix time code. And then, yeah, you can pull it down and then you can get all the daily price changes. And so one of the things that I asked you guys to do is to go ahead and, look at your data and, calculate means and medians and the standard deviation, which is going to give you a measure of the spread of the data. If you have questions about any of those terms, you can go ahead and Google them. They're all things that you guys should have had in Stat 1200. And then, begin to look at segments of the data and like maybe for different months and see how the means have changed. And, again, in your discussion post, talk about patterns that you've noticed. So if you respond to the post, you should be fine. And that should help you get started on the stuff for this week. Now, the one other thing, and we'll talk about it at more next week in depth, but ultimately, our sort of benchmark model for all assets is what we call the intrinsic or fundamental value of the asset. So any economic analysis is going to ask you basically, what is the cash flow associated with owning this asset? And if I take the present discounted value of that cash flow, then that should be what we call the intrinsic value or fundamental price of the asset. And anything that's different from that fundamental value. So when we talk about pricing other assets like stocks and bonds, the fundamental value is again based on the present discounted value of all future cash flows. Now, there are subtleties with that, and we'll talk about it next time, but that's what you want to begin thinking about, you know. So I'll give you an example. Housing prices, right? If you go look on Zillow, you'll see, their housing price estimates for local real estate. But if you kind of dig in a little bit deeper, and there are bubbles sometimes that show up in the housing market, and I won't really talk into detail about what bubbles are at this point, even though that's the direction that we're going. But you can look at the fundamental value for a house pretty easily, and it's the present discounted value of all future rents. So if I were to look at the Zillow estimate for a house today, there's also a rental value. But what you should see is that obviously, right, if you have a house that's going to generate $2,000 worth of rent going forward for the next 30 years, then you can apply a discount factor to the future monthly rent and discount it all back into the present value. And even if there's some departure from the Zillow's estimate from the future rental value, well, that would be some bubble discrepancy, and there may be other things in there that we can't exactly see by looking at the future rent, like you know, um, you know, the rent net of taxes or depreciation, something to do with the age of the house and how many repairs it's going to have. But what you will see for sure, will be pretty transparent, is as the rental value goes up, that present discounted value of future cash flows grows, and the housing price is going to go up. So yeah, it all has to do, the present value of any asset is what its current fundamental value or what its market price prediction should be. And so you want to start to think about, okay, this is an asset. If I own this asset, really, what is going to be the payback from owning that asset? And and um you know um you want to begin to think about, okay, um what's the present discounted value of future cash flows, because one of the things that your paper should include is some estimate of the fundamental value of of the asset, in this case the coin that you're talking about. And don't be scared if you have a hard time with it, because for most coins like Bitcoin, just for example, the biggest issue is that that kind of estimate for what's going to be the payback from this, um, is things that analysts right now are um, having a tremendous time. The professionals that do this stuff all the time. So if you can't, I mean, you make some progress, but the great thing about research is that even if your conclusion is tentative, or you realize that the model that you're working with doesn't seem to really capture what's going on with the data, that's a good intermediate conclusion. So don't worry about it. Um, okay, so that's all I wanted to say right now.